These are TikTok's craziest conspiracy theory rabbit holes. All right, the first TikTok rabbit hole I have been very far down lately is the David and Celeste rabbit hole. I think with the preliminary hearing, it's just all over TikTok right now. And I feel like people don't really understand how bad it actually is and how much of a creep this guy is. It is disturbing to say the least.
Everyone is so focused on David, but let's talk about Celeste and David's parents. When David and Celeste started talking, Celeste was only 11 years old and looked like a literal baby. At first, Celeste's parents tried to stop her relationship with David, but eventually they gave up and stopped intervening. According to testimony, David spent a lot of time with Celeste's parents. He went to church with them and was even invited to go out with them. When Celeste was 14 and David was 19, both of Celeste's parents signed a notarized child travel consent form so that Celeste could travel to London with David. After hearing all of this, the entire courtroom was in shock because Celeste's father told his attorney that he had never had any contact with David. Allegedly, Celeste's parents had no idea that Celeste was pregnant with David's baby and got rid of the baby at age 13. But you know who did know that Celeste was pregnant? David's mother. David's mom told David to ask 13-year-old Celeste if the baby was even his. This case honestly just keeps blowing my mind every single day. But what do you guys think of it?
I truly think that this could have been avoided on many people's parts here. I think there was a lot of negligence in regards to this case. And I think the fact that the two of them were dating and he got Celeste pregnant and the fact that she was 11 years old and looked like a literal child because she was a literal child when they met. I think that all of those things were overlooked too much. And ultimately, I do think her death could have been prevented. And that is a very frustrating thing to see.
They just revealed the final text messages between David and Celeste, highlighting the exact reason he took her life. I mean, this is crazy. So today was day 5 of the preliminary hearing, and LAPD detective Corey Farrell took the stand, who has analyzed around 8,000 to 9,000 text messages between David and Celeste. And from what it seems like, their last big argument stemmed from the fact that David was really close with another girl named Asia Collins. So just a day or two before Celeste's life was taken, she texted David, "Bro, I said I didn't want to be friends with you if you wanted to be friends with her," referencing Asia. This then turned into a string of text messages with David saying, "You're turning this into something way bigger than it is," and Celeste responding, "Just tell me the truth, David," insinuating that he was cheating on her with Asia. And this is when Celeste started making threats to David, saying things like, "If I see you with Asia one more time, I will make anonymous accounts. You won't be able to avoid me leaking all the stuff I have on you." And at one point, Celeste got really angry when Asia went to David's house to go pick up Coachella tickets, and when she found this out, she texted him, "Oh my effing god, I will kill you. I will strangle you to effing death. I will tell my dad so many lies about you, I will end your career and your life." And of course, David's defense is using all of this, saying she was making clear threats to leak all of this information to all of these people and even take his life, when this is just a girl who was clearly very upset and hurt by someone who she thought she was in love with. They then showed messages from April 23rd, the day that Celeste lost her life, and the day that David arranged an Uber to pick Celeste up from her home. At 5:07, David says, "Why do I have to show you everything I get?" And she says, "Because I had your embryo in me," and then tells him to get the Uber and gives him the address. She then confirms that she was picked up, and at 8:39, she says, "I'm almost there. Open your door if you're home." And at 10:10, he says, "Gate open, door unlocked." And then at 10:31, he says, "Uber said you're here. Where you at?" Now remember, prosecutors allege that in those 20 minutes between 10:10 and 10:31, he took her life and then acted like she never got there, saying, "Hello, bro, Celeste, you're blocking me. I'ma call Jen, you're scaring me. Where are you? Please." Just a string of messages. He continued this until around 11:40. Now the evidence does show that the Uber got there around 10:10, and David left his home in his Tesla around 11:30 to go to that Santa Barbara area. And the only response David's team had to this was that when Celeste and David started talking, Celeste initially represented herself as 16 and 18 years of age, which doesn't make any of this any better. Rest in peace to Celeste. Let me know what you guys think about this, and as any new details come out, I'll keep you guys up.
Not only does that not make anything better, it's also not true. And clearly she looks like a child. I think that that is a ridiculous statement. But I feel like David's defense, I don't know how they sleep at night. Obviously, I understand that it is their job to defend this guy, but I'm like, I seriously don't know how lawyers do that. I don't. Like, would defending someone who you know is like clearly guilty, I don't know, I feel like there has to be some bad juju with that, bad karma for that. But I've obviously found this case to be incredibly disturbing, and I think it's frustrating because I do think, again, like there could have been things that could have prevented this, and the fact that David's defense is turning it around and blaming a child for threatening like David and being like, well, I'm gonna tell everyone, like, girl, we all did that when we were 16, because we were 16. And I feel like she was talking to her boyfriend in a way that a 14-year-old thinks that they're in love with her boyfriend because she was 14. Like, she was literally a kid. And the fact that he was dating her, the fact that all of this happened is obviously disgusting and disturbing. But I think it is disgusting and so fucked up to, I'm sure Celeste's parents must hate hearing the defense really try to blame their daughter for her own death. It's disgraceful. Truly. All right, a TikTok rabbit hole I have been going down lately is the connection between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell with Princess Diana. So obviously we know Prince Andrew is quite involved with Jeffrey Epstein.
I looked up every time Princess Diana was mentioned in the Epstein files, and what I found really painted a creepy picture of what history actually looks like. Evidently, Jeffrey Epstein liked to brag about the night that he met Princess Diana. In this email exchange, he references the night he met Princess Diana was the night she wore the revenge dress. It seemed like he had a bit of a rivalry with the man who threw the party in which he met Diana, and he likes to memorialize that night. He was also passing around the article that mentioned his night of meeting Diana. Of course, this is alleged. Diana is no longer here. It reads, in 1994, just at the moment when Prince Charles was on television acknowledging his love for Camilla Parker Bowles, Jeffrey Epstein was sitting with his arm around Princess Diana at a dinner at the Serpentine Galley in London, Diana wearing her revenge dress that evening. Graydon Carter, in his second year as editor of Vanity Fair, was also at the dinner. Epstein's rise and Carter's rise are not, with a little critical interpretation, that different. Both are a function of the age of new money, both are helped by strategic relationships with the exceptionally wealthy, both have made themselves up. To say that Epstein and the company of the princess stuck in Carter's craw would be an understatement. Epstein became one of the what do you know about him figures in Carter's gossip trail, a story waiting to happen. Carter once advised me not to go to Epstein's house or accept a ride in his car, lest I risk being blackmailed. For what, I asked Carter. You can't even begin to imagine, said Carter. Graydon Carter is the man on the left. What's really interesting is how somehow Jeffrey Epstein is a part of the lore behind the black revenge dress. A lot of powerful people are mentioned in that article, including Bill Gates and Bill Clinton, and even Qatari royalty. Another interesting excerpt of a journal that's included about the Cannes Film Festival at the Côte d'Azur in France, which I found kind of interesting. Friday, May 13th. Press run to a midday screening of the controversial documentary Unlawful Killing, the unapologetically one-sided conspiracy theories about the death of Princess Diana and her boyfriend Dodi Fayed in the fatal 1999 car crash in Paris. At the press conference at the Carlton, journalists yelled questions challenging the accuracy. Mohammed Al-Fayed paid $5 million to underwrite the entire film, which tries to prove Prince Philip murdered Al-Fayed's son because he was a Muslim. The film is banned in England. Now I really want to watch that documentary. Have you heard of this documentary? There's also rumors that Princess Diana was bullied by Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine is the daughter of a British media tycoon, almost like the Paris Hilton of Britain in the 80s. It's crazy how all of these people and lives intersect.
I do think that there is more to say about the connection of Princess Diana and the Epstein files, Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell in general. And I also just feel like when you look at the Maxwells, their history is so intertwined with literally everything, and especially with the blue and white state. Because this next TikTok I saw shows how Ghislaine Maxwell's sister could have had some interesting involvements with 9/11 allegedly, okay?
Ready for this rabbit hole? Ghislaine Maxwell's sister, Christine Maxwell, is the co-founder of the corporation that the FBI's counterterrorism division used to surveil the footage from 9/11. She also had her hands in Magellan, which, if anyone remembers many, many years ago, was the first curated internet search engine. But that's not even what's crazy. Stick with me here. The data mining and the software company that the FBI's counterterrorism division used was called Chiliad. This is where it gets crazy. Leslie Benzies and Sam Houser are the presidents of Rockstar Games, which are the ones that created GTA, and Leslie Benzies was actually the lead developer for Grand Theft Auto. Both named in the Epstein files, but who remembers Mount Chiliad in Grand Theft Auto 5? If you're not a gamer, that's okay. There was a place on the map in Grand Theft Auto 5 that you went to, and it was supposed to be this really mysterious Easter egg. And at 3 a.m. specifically, you could see UFOs and aliens. And if you look, it had this symbol on the map, which to me looks like the all-seeing eye, but I see a line through it, and those little marks all around it, which is esoteric symbolism. A horizontal line being a perception or a threshold that crosses between the veil or different realms. And those little radiating marks around are called emanation marks, which basically means revelation or energy being activated. So what does Chiliad mean, and why does it hold so much significance? And it really makes me wonder if all of this is connected on a much deeper level than we can even imagine.
So obviously I think that is incredibly strange of a coincidence that Ghislaine Maxwell's sister was even somewhat slightly involved in the conspiracy theory that is 9/11. And I don't know, I feel like I could do a whole 9/11 conspiracy theories video, but I just go back and forth because I do think that there was parts of it that, you know, maybe was like an inside job, but I don't know if it's necessarily like Bush did 9/11 kind of thing. Like, that's never been my thoughts, but I really want to hear what you guys think of that because it's pretty insane. There has been a crazy rabbit hole about the Jeffrey Epstein caboose theory, and I am very curious as to what the fuck this is, where it is, and what's inside of it, because it could hold the answers to a lot of questions, especially about Zorro Ranch. Which, by the way, Zorro Ranch has still never been investigated. I don't think people really get that. And I don't know why people don't like constantly talk about that, because it's very frustrating to me because it was owned by Jeffrey Epstein's estate till 2023. And when it was purchased by a Trump-endorsed state senator. And I'm not just saying that because, oh, you lefties bring up Trump with everything. No, it's on his website. Okay, Don Huffines, it's literally Trump-endorsed senator. He's the one that promotes that. So I just think it's a little interesting that he happened to buy Zorro Ranch. Why would you even want to own such a property? That I don't know. But Zorro Ranch had this caboose, this red caboose that was there for over a decade. And then on Google Maps, you can see one day, like, while Jeffrey Epstein's estate still owned Zorro Ranch, it just goes missing.
Jeffrey Epstein had a caboose on Zorro Ranch, but in the last few years, it's gone missing. This is a highly suspicious rabbit hole that I really think needs to be looked into by authorities. So if you've gone through any of the Epstein files, you've probably seen this caboose. This is an image of the caboose in Jeffrey Epstein's notorious birthday book. And if you go through the photos found in the Epstein files, you can see lots of images taken of and inside of this train car. Like this image right here, which appears to show 2 Epstein survivors out front of the caboose, and this image of the caboose found elsewhere in the files. But I think this image says a lot. As you can see, this caboose, this old train car, was out in the middle of nowhere, literally on the border, the very edge of Epstein's Zorro Ranch property. Why was it so far away from everything else? Why is it in such a desolate area? I mean, this is a place at the end of the day where people were coming and going to and from. This is a location that people were being brought to and photographed in front of. So why is it so far away from everything else on the property? Now, interestingly, the original poster of the video that I found about this created this map. And you can see this is kind of a breakdown of the Zorro Ranch property. The main house was up there. And then way at the tippy top almost, there was the caboose. And I don't know how to properly express this to people, but unless you've been there like I have, you don't really understand how far away these points are from each other. But the caboose was extremely far from the house. And it's interesting because the caboose seemed to sit right on the border of the state land and Epstein's property. I've seen some sources claim that it was on Epstein's land, some sources say it was on state land. But regardless, the caboose was there. Epstein purposefully had it brought to the land and installed there. and the real reason why has never been fully explained. Now, interestingly, I believe this is an image found in the Epstein files from within the caboose itself. The area seemed to have been set up for visitation. There appears to be a table and chairs in the caboose, but this is kind of the only photo I could find of what is allegedly the interior. I don't know who these people are that are in the image, but here's where things get really interesting. So, according to actual maps provided by the New Mexican government, we can see that the caboose was present on property in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, but then suspiciously in 2023, somewhere in March of that year, the caboose vanishes. The caboose was removed at some point before the property was sold to the new owners, meaning that Epstein's estate still had control of the property, I believe, when the caboose was removed. But to have this thing brought out to the ranch, Epstein had to use a crane, contractors, it was a whole process. But there's no mention of this thing being removed at all. And to my knowledge, it was never searched by authorities. So why was it removed? Where is it now? Has it been searched? This caboose could have had damning evidence inside of it, and yet it's nowhere to be found.
So I do think that this caboose could hold a lot of answers to questions that we probably haven't even asked yet. And it scares the hell out of me that it just fucking disappeared out of nowhere, and still to this day, nobody knows where it is. Or at least the public don't, and no one's really commenting on it at all. And I think that that is incredibly suspicious. So what does this all mean? I honestly don't know. I feel like the Ghislaine Maxwell rabbit hole is even darker and deeper than the Jeffrey Epstein one, because a lot of what Jeffrey Epstein is and who he was, we have seen. A lot of it, obviously, we haven't, because the Department of Justice won't release it. But we know to an extent how horrific he was. I think that it's interesting how far back Ghislaine Maxwell's family goes within this world, because it connects not just to the royal family, but to our school books. Our school books were made by McGraw-Hill, which was a company that was co-owned by Maxwell's father. So again, I just think it's really interesting, and I really need to hear your guys' thoughts on all of this, because it's been driving me crazy and I've been spiraling down that rabbit hole. All right, the next TikTok is honestly so heartbreaking. I cannot believe that this happened. It's just really sad, but it is about the TikToker Sarah Gillson. Basically, Sarah Gillson did a TikTok of the Netflix trend, the Netflix documentary trend, and she was talking about how she found out her husband was a PDF file, and just 12 days later, he murdered her.
2 weeks ago, this influencer on this app did that Netflix trend that come into a space like this, with the cameras. And then you sit down and you say, preparing for my Netflix doc about whatever. Most people did silly stuff that wouldn't really be worthy of a Netflix doc, but some people did serious stuff. And it would be written, the caption, and she did write about her ex, discovering her ex is a pedophile. And it went viral. And he also had a big following here on TikTok. He was, a TikToker as well as being a coach. And the little bit of discovery that I've done here, it appears that she had great evidence to believe this was true. He had not been arrested. He was a coach of young girls in sports, and this child was only 15, the alleged victim. She separated from him. She obtained a restraining order, a temporary restraining order. From what I can tell, they were together as recent as Memorial Day. So, she discovered it somewhere in there, got the restraining order, and about 2 weeks ago did the trend. He had a huge following, and he went private just before this tragedy happened. And the tragedy is he went to her house last night and shot her, and then himself and one of her children from her previous relationship. I believe like a preteen boy who was not hurt, thank God, physically. He was the one who called the police. And when the police arrived, they were already both deceased. Absolutely devastating. And please pray for her. She, her name's Sarah Gillson, on her TikTok page, after she put out that video, which now has 6.2 million views. I don't know where it was at yesterday, but it was huge and trending. I'm sure it was well over a couple million before. he felt driven to do this horrible crime. Obviously, he was mentally ill and a murderer. But she thanked her beautiful friend Courtney for supporting her. And Courtney's put up a GoFundMe. She thanked her followers. And, this is why people say, hey, why don't women come forward sooner? Why don't they speak up? Well, she spoke up in a very public way in which other people can voice their opinions. And I'm sure he lost his mind over that public humiliation. But I have no doubt what she said was true. Otherwise, I don't think he would have reacted like this. Just devastating.
So this is obviously incredibly upsetting to see. And again, I do think that what that TikTok user pointed out about how this is why women don't come forward. And a lot of people are like, well, why wouldn't you just say something? And this is why. You have to actually be scared of that. And it is incredibly fucked up. But I also think that the case itself is really interesting. So Jeremiah Duffy is the husband, and he had been accused of essaying a child, basically a little girl, and her mom went to the police and said that Duffy, who coached the girls' traveling basketball team, was inappropriately essaying her during an event at an elementary school, which is obviously sick and twisted. And the police ended up coming out about this, and they said similar conduct by this coach towards this particular juvenile player was reported to have occurred over an extended period of time in multiple law enforcement jurisdictions across multiple states prior to this incident. So I think that that is frustrating because it seems like this was already reported and then still happening. And I think a lot of this could have been prevented, but basically Sarah Gillson, she found out about this, immediately filed and received an emergency protective order from Jeremiah Duffy. As per the police, recommended this because they assumed that he could do something like he did. And I just think it's so heartbreaking that she posted the truth, exposing this disgusting man, and just 12 days later, the police receive a call. The police receive a 911 call from a little boy who called 911 from a neighbor's house saying that his stepfather shot his mother. And I can't even imagine having to live with that, knowing that and seeing that. It is incredibly heartbreaking, and it just fucking frustrating, and I don't even know. It's definitely been a case that I have been thinking a lot about lately, and it's disturbing to freaks me the hell out. One of the creepiest rabbit holes to go down is definitely TV hijacking. Okay, this has happened so many times, and it freaks me out every single time because genuinely I would have had a panic attack if this happened to me as a child. I don't think I would be able to recover from it fully. And these TikToks are some of the creepiest ones that I found. And again, I don't know what they mean or what they are, why, but I don't fucking like it. When I tell you genuinely that I would never recover from that if that happened to me as a child, I used to get scared of the sound of the TV timer. When you put your TV on a sleep timer, I used to wake up to the sound of it turning off. And Disney Channel was my safe space, or also Nickelodeon, because I remember waking up to hearing the George Lopez theme song, and that seems to be a common occurrence across all people. But I would genuinely have freaked the fuck out if this happened to me. Imagine this coming on and waking you up in the middle of the night. I would lose my fucking marbles. And how the hell are these people hacking Disney. Like, this is Disney. I don't know why I decided to film this at 10 p.m. because now I'm genuinely scared. That freaks me the fuck out. I don't like that Mickey Mouse costume. I can't. And apparently this also happened on Nickelodeon, and again, this would have sent me into orbit as a child.
You will understand. You will understand.
I think that one might have been the worst. That genuinely creeps me out. What the fuck you mean? Jerry? If I was Jerry, I would file several restraining orders. I don't even know on who, but I'd be filing them. All right, the next conspiracy theory rabbit hole I have been down has to deal with Carnelian law. But first, we're gonna see this particular TikTok that talks about how they kind of hide everything in plain sight, and then we're gonna talk about the theory as to why, which is the Carnelian theory.
They put it right in your face. This statue in New York, a reptile pulling a child underground. I really wish I could elaborate on this without getting in trouble, but I mean, I'm sure some of you, I hope, can connect the dots of what I'm saying here. They have a statue in New York of a reptile, an alligator, pulling what looks like a child underground into a sewer. Why? Why? What is the reason? Tell me.
And I seriously agree. What is the reason for that? That is so fucking weird. And then I saw people commenting on that TikTok talking about Carnelian law and how it's Carnelian law. And I was like, what the hell is Carnelian law? Like, I only know Carnelian as the crystal. So then I went down the Carnelian law rabbit hole and I kind of believe it.
Carnelian law, MK Ultra, Project Looking Glass. Them showing these files to us is them literally using and trying to promote the laws of Carnelian law. As long as they show us exactly what they're doing, they can't receive the karma that comes from it. By design, we, people, can't handle all the terrible, stressful crap that's in these files, so they're MK Ultraing us. They're putting us through extreme trauma, and one, they're fear harvesting, and two, they're making it so we're desensitized to this crap. But if you believe in Project Looking Glass, which I've just started deep diving, and if it is legitimate, if that technology is real, then no matter what, we win.
So I think basically the idea that people can do these horrible things as long as they confess it to us in some way kind of makes sense. Based on a lot of people reference the Simpsons in this, people think that the Simpsons, like how it always predicts things that happen, it's really just telling you things that have already happened or that will happen or that they already knew and have known has been happening. And the reason that they're putting it in our media is to confess it without confessing it, and so that clears their karmic debt. I don't know if I think that this is fully true, but I do think there is something weird here for sure. All right, the next rabbit hole I have definitely been down has to do with Antarctica. I think that Antarctica is probably one of the most suspicious, weird ass places that I have ever researched, and I feel like anytime I do research it, it's just not even close to scraping the surface as to what the hell is actually going on there. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean that all of these countries came together to agree that no one's allowed to go to Antarctica when these countries can't agree that the sky is blue? What the fuck do you mean? Come on.
This rate, y'all are gonna still try to gaslight me into thinking that Antarctica is not a cover-up. Okay, let's just recap real quick for the new people. I haven't talked about Antarctica since 50,000 followers ago. So for the newbies, let's do a little recap. Admiral Byrd, an aviator, 1900s, he says he flew into a hole in the South Pole, came out the other end of Antarctica, and it was not ice, it was green land. He saw different kinds of creatures, rainbow cities, all of these extra things. Your first thought is gonna be like, girl, what are you talking about? That's crazy. Those are what do you mean mythical creatures? What do you mean rainbow cities? What do you mean green land in Antarctica? Homeboy comes back, he tells the world. That's his first mistake. Years later, he ends up doing an operation called Operation High Jump. I believe there is an ice wall. I think he was trying to get over the ice wall. Apparently, allegedly, it's in his journals. So, during his expedition, he unalives from a heart problem. He unalived in 1957, okay? 1958 comes around, a shiny new distraction called NASA is created. Y'all already know how I feel about NASA. It's literally, the Hebrew word for NASA is to deceive. And I just went down a rabbit hole of, how this is supposed to be a serpent tongue or something like that. Deceitful serpent. That one, I don't know how on board I am for that because it could be literally anything. I'm a conspiracy theorist, but it's got to make sense. But the fact that NASA means deceive, you kind of sold me on that one. Right after NASA is made, everyone's distracted. 1959, the Antarctica Treaty is signed. Where now we can't go to Antarctica. We can't know what's going on there. We can only go on cruises and listen to what they tell us. Why did I see this map? 1587 map of Antarctica, honestly the whole world, and in Antarctica specifically, which, let me pull it up. It's a 1587 world map. Antarctica is up here and there's land past Antarctica. Y'all, look at what we're seeing. We are seeing creatures like dragons. We are seeing giants fighting the dragons. We are seeing creatures in the ocean that are half human, half serpent, half human, half fish. We're seeing large serpents in the water. Ask yourself how many times you've heard stories, folklore, all throughout time for serpents, half animal, half man, marine creatures, giants, dragons. All of these things have one common denominator. They've been talked about for centuries. But now, in the age of the media, we've now all decided that it's just mythical. Like, it's all just, none of this stuff actually ever happened, even though people have been talking about it for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they didn't have phones, they didn't have TVs, they didn't have anything to communicate, but everyone's talking about the same thing. Hello?
That is something that always gets me when it comes to mermaids, fairies, dragons, any of those like kind of mythical creatures, is the fact that across the world and across centuries, there were people who were depicting these creatures in books and, drawings and such, and stories and folklore across the world from each other. And yeah, like now I would be able to see what somebody in Australia is saying about something because of social media and because of the internet in general. But all this shit is way before that ever existed. So how the fuck are you gonna tell me that these things were never actually real and just thousands of people on opposite sides of the entire world happen to depict the exact same mythical creature? What are the odds? What are the odds? I don't believe it. I don't know. I don't know if I think it has anything to do with Antarctica necessarily, but it is a rabbit hole that I definitely always am tumbling down, okay? All right, the last rabbit hole that I have been down lately has to do with Mount Everest. And the suspicions and the conspiracy theories behind Mount Everest are honestly darker than you would think.
I've fallen down a rabbit hole again, and I'm about to share with you what I have found out about Mount Everest. It's going to blow your mind because I don't think any of this stuff is common knowledge. I didn't know any of this. Firstly, it costs between $50,000 and $100,000 to be able to climb Mount Everest, right? Because you've got to pay for your equipment, like your oxygen, your boots, your suits. You've got to pay for your permit and a Sherpa. A Sherpa is someone who is paid pennies, right, to carry climbers' belongings up the mountain. So whilst they're like, these poor bastards are the ones doing the actual hard work. They're carrying all their shit, all their oxygen, all their camping gear. Like, these people are not given enough recognition and they're paid nothing, apparently. And a lot of them, unfortunately, pass away because obviously not only is it an extreme climb and, it's treacherous, dangerous, but climbers will actually, like, hold on to these people if they stumble or whatever, and so many of them have died. Also, it takes about 2 months. The climb takes about 2 months in total, and I'll explain why. So this is a diagram. So, I mean, at the top you've got the death zone, which I'll talk about in a minute, because that's just another... But basically, at the bottom here somewhere, you've got base camp, which is already around 17,000 feet above sea level. So you've got to trek it there, right? Now, as you can see, you've got camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, camp 4. You can't just continuously climb because of the extreme altitudes. So to basically safely acclimatise to it, the climbers will climb all the way up to camp 1, spend a night, whatever, have to come back to base camp. They'll do it again and back and forth and back and forth. Then once they're like acclimatized, once they're doing that a few times, they'll progress on to camp 2 and then back to base camp, back up to camp 2, back. And they do this the whole way to acclimatize their bodies to the extreme altitudes. Also, you're only allowed the permit for about 4 months out of the year. I think it's like May to September. So there's a lot of people trying to climb the mountain at the same time, so no wonder there's so many casualties. Now, this is where it gets really fucking mad. So the death zone that I showed you on the diagram, that's near the top, you cannot the reason it's called the death zone is because you cannot spend long here at all, because at this sort of altitude your cells start to break down, your muscle tissue literally starts wasting away, and your body is actively dying. I read somewhere that they will, if they haven't reached the summit by 2 p.m, then they have to turn around and come back down, because after that it's just like you're risking extreme weather, and you might get stuck up there, which obviously, like, you will die. Not to mention as well that the whole time you're climbing, you are just stepping over deceased people because their bodies are just left on the mountain because there's no way of getting them back. Also, helicopters
can rescue people up to Camp 2. If you're any higher than that, helicopters can't go up. They can't rescue you because they literally cannot function. The propellers cannot function at those altitudes. So you are just literally left to die, and people can't physically, they haven't got the strength to get up themselves, let alone to help somebody else. There's been cases where people's loved ones have literally died whilst climbing, and then they've gone on to finish the climb, take all their pictures at the top, and they're like, oh yeah, my wife would have wanted me to do this. There's actually a guy who died, I don't know when, like we're going back some time, and he was wearing these bright green boots. So green boots has become a landmark on the side of the mountain. A deceased body has become a landmark because of the boots he was wearing. Like, can you imagine being known as green boots? Wow. For reference, these are all the bodies on Everest. On average, 5 to 7 people die every year climbing this sodding mountain. Like, not in any lifetime would you catch me even attempting. There is no desire to even want to attempt that. And I saw a guy say, if you couldn't post about it and you couldn't tell anyone you'd done it, would you still do it? And that's the reality, isn't it, really? People are doing it, risking their lives, risking 100 grand to climb a mountain, to take a picture, whilst your body actively deteriorates. I think this just proves how many people just have too much money, because I can tell you a few other ways I would personally spend 100 grand. Yeah, absolutely mind-blowing. It's not for the average Joe.
So that is obviously incredibly disturbing, and I feel like it's so dystopian, the fact that this is like even still allowed to be a thing. Like, we're not allowed to go to Antarctica, but you're allowed to climb Mount Everest if you pay 100 grand. But something about this is just really freaky to me, and I think it's really weird that people pay $100,000 to climb Mount Everest, because you couldn't pay me $100,000 to climb Mount Everest. I would never, not even, I couldn't. I just like physically couldn't. There's no way. We all know that. But I need to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I feel like I've never really done like a deep dive down a rabbit hole about Mount Everest, because I never cared about Mount Everest, to be honest, because I was always weirded out by the fact that people even cared to climb it. But I didn't realize how fucking dark and twisted it actually is, because it's way worse than I could have imagined. But anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what TikTok rabbit hole you've been going down lately. I want to hear it. But that is it. Make sure you follow me on TikTok and Instagram and subscribe for new videos every week, and I will see you guys later. Bye.